What is up, winning team? Today, I want to speak to the peoples about something I'm so passionate about, and that is algebra. Now, stick with me because algebra is actually so easy. And the reason why people find it so difficult, and it's all making sense now. I really thank the Lord that he created me to be who I am, because I really feel like where I've had experience in actual teaching, and obviously we've all been students, as well, it's really interesting for me to be on this side. Obviously, if those of you don't know, I work in teaching. I'm currently working 2 different teaching jobs. I'm also now teaching. My second job is particularly working with vulnerable children and young people and adults and special needs. So that's really interesting, right? Who have had all these circumstances as to why they're not necessarily on track or whatever. And so trying to help them with whatever their challenges are that are in life, some pretty extreme challenges. So, and my job is to show up and to teach, maths, science, English, unfortunately, in this new job. But you guys know I hate English, but I guess it's kind of good for me to up my levels a little bit. I can do English. I just don't like that I have to put so much thought into things that are illogical. This is my point. So back to algebra. People will find something like English easy because there's no logic. You just learn a bunch of rules and you just follow them. Algebra and science is logical thinking. So I'm in the middle of my workday currently. I've got my little back to health soup in my crock pot because I like to try and heal myself with the natural things that the Lord created. And I've been perfecting my chicken soup recipe, for one day when I'm going to be a mom. I'm going to be like, you're sick. Actually, I make soup for people all the time when they're unwell. Anyway, not important, not a part of the video. Algebra is just purely logical thinking. And the thing is, right, I've always had this attention to the children and the young people that I don't limit what they're capable of. And if they struggle immediately with something, I don't think that they can't do it. I find strategies let's believe that the idea that they can't do it is the absolute last option. Every other option is the option I have. And usually there's something that is disabling their logical thinking. And this is what I notice about adults and as well. We all do it because we were all trained in the illogical thinking training camps. That's what we should call school. The illogical thinking training camps, right? Because I will ask, it's like when I ask people get stuck. There's 2 things that happen when people try to attempt some of these questions. Number 1, they get overwhelmed because they feel like they don't know and they just give up without even trying. Because a lot of times I'll say to the kids well, what do you know? This happened to me with, again, one of the children, the young people at my new job who's been written off. No one thinks that he's even smart enough to do anything, right? But I was like, we're going to do Pythagoras. We're doing because basically he's into football. And so part of some of the lessons we were doing, so make it a bit more fun, we're doing about how to draw a football pitch and I figured out that apparently this guy uses Pythagoras' theorem to draw the things, which is really cool. So we were doing Pythagoras, right? And I said to him, I asked him a couple of questions. He was like, he couldn't do all of this stuff. There was one piece of information he knew, which was the angle, that a right angle was 90 degrees. Just that alone, we were able to extrapolate the angles of so many different other shapes, the total angles, this angle, that angle, what this angle would be, in so many different other shapes. All why? Because of logical thinking. And then so when people are saying, and I'll just say, well, okay, so you know that. So if that's that, then what about this and that? And what is this then anyway? And I just ask these questions. All I do is I just ask really good questions, to the students, and they do super well. And I like to do that. And there's a reason why I do that, because obviously I'm thinking they have to sit in an exam where if they forget that I was barking at them some random statement that they don't understand and they just happen to forget, then they're screwed. However, if they have tools to deal with things that they're the unexpected, right, and to think logically when dealing with the unexpected, they're going to do better, right? But of course, therein is the reason why the school system doesn't do that, because the school system doesn't want you to think for yourself. They don't want you to be logical thinkers, because if you would logically think, you wouldn't be doing what they're telling you to do and you wouldn't be putting up with it. So instead, they get you to just become a parrot that goes along with their machine. That's what they have to do, because think about it, literally schools. I was saying this to somebody the other day. schools literally are built, even if you go to study business. This is why I would never study business at university. Although I did study business, I do actually have an accreditation and a qualification in business that I did. I have so many qualifications, it's actually a joke. And I remember the course that I did, it wasn't very long, but it was like, the guy was like, listen, we're not going to do all that faff that they do in university. In university, they will train you to be a CEO in their company. So when you go to university to study business, they're training you to become a CEO in somebody else's company, so that the person in somebody else's company that you're going to be the CEO of, you're either going to be at the top level or the bottom level. Either way, they'll just filter you in like a fractional distillation tank, right? Into whichever level, depending on how well you do, right? The better you do, the higher that you are, the lower, the worse you do. And then you're just climbing the corporate ladder, as they call it, these phrases that make me cringe. Right. And then you think you're doing well as a CEO, making $250,000 a year as your salary. Meanwhile, they're making stupid money and having a whale of a time on Epstein Island. Like, that's exactly what these people are trying to do. That's why I'm so against the education system. And I will tell you guys here and now, my goal, one of my biggest goals in life, is to absolutely bulldoze this stupid system. Can I just say? Because I am sick and tired of like people feeling brokenhearted and people feeling broken down and like they can't do it and like they're stupid because they didn't do well in school. A system that isn't built for logical thinking. Because they don't teach you logic. They do not teach you logic. It is insane to me that I'm teaching a student, right? I'm teaching some of these new students at my new job, right? And they're operating at this level of, I'm reading all the paperwork I get sent in. Like, because I get sent all the paperwork. They have to tell me what this person said and what that person said and what that person said. And there's all these long page documents of all these comments about the kids. And I always read them, but I always read them with a pinch of salt. I'm like, I'm going to do my own evaluation because I hate when people just assume stuff about me and they don't know me, right? And so one of the things that I was told about one of my students was, because of X, Y, and Z LMNOP things that said young person has going on, they need frequent breaks during the sessions. How come that's not happening in my session? Because they get overwhelmed. So I was thinking, well, that's not happening in my sessions. Maybe I was just stressing the poor kid out, because right now I'm like, do you want a break? And they're like, no. Like, I ask kids all the time, like, do you need a break, by the way? We've just been going for, they're like, no. They're like locked in now. I'm like, okay. We're doing well, you know. And if they did ask for a break, obviously I would give them. And that's why I still forcefully give them breaks sometimes. Like, no, we're taking a break now. We need to take a break. Your brain needs to rest. Your brain needs oxygen. Go outside, go have some water, go look at something else. Forget about everything we just did. Like, you know. So I know that at least I can only speak for the Western system. Although, guys, funny story is that I did actually go to school for about a year or so in Zimbabwe. So I do actually have a taste of, you see what I mean? It's just nuts that I've been all over. I did preschool in freaking America, right? I've done flipping a couple of years of primary my first couple of years of primary in Zimbabwe, and the rest of my education in England, for goodness sake. Anyway, and so I noticed some very interesting, distinctive differences as well, by the way, between school there and school here. Won't comment for today. Anyways, point being, I've noticed that the struggle that the kids have is a struggle that adults have. How do I think logically? Thinking logically. Because people make illogical decisions for certain things. Like, so you say like, oh, well, why did you? So the same way that I will ask a kid, so 2 times 3, you put 10. Why did you put 10? What is the answer? It's 6. Did I say 2 times 3? Yeah, it's 6. So like, so why did you put 10? Oh, because so-and-so said it was 10. This is what adults do. This is why I can kind of see how society turned out the way that it did. Because I'm like, it's the same way that I can ask a student a very simple question, right? They'll write the wrong answer. They know the right answer, but they did the wrong answer because so-and-so next to them told them. And I'm like, and then we wonder why we can't think. But this is what they want. This is what the government wants, because we've been created to be some kind of parrots, not critical thinkers. And this is why I love the Lord. And this is why I love reading the Bible. Because reading the Bible and critically reading the Bible is an insanely incredible experience. So like even today, for example, this is why I love the Bible. Even today, for example, so when I read the Bible, I don't just read the Bible, I study the Bible, because I realize now that I know that I'm good at studying. I'm good at research, clearly. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a scientist, like I'm good at studying. So when I read the Bible, I don't just read it, I study it. So I like read it. I read it in multiple different translations. Then I will search. Like if it's like, and then Noah went from this place to this place, I'll be like, I'll Google such and such place to such and such place in the Bible, maps, so I can see the maps, I can visualize it. Then I'll look into like the historical context. What was happening in history? What were the historians saying? Were the historians saying anything about Noah? Was these people saying anything about Noah? Also, what's Noah's lineage even? And who came before him? And who were his ancestors? And I put all the pieces together. Like that's what I do. It's called critical thinking, right? This is what I do. And this is why I have the revelations that I do about God, because I'd be like all up in that. Like when I was telling you guys about the 12 tribes of Israel. And I was saying that people made a big kerfuffle in the Bible about Joseph. Christians today are all like, Joseph, who was one of, I think it's a total of 13 eventually sons that Jacob had. And that's what people get caught up in. I'll say that this is the wisdom that people lost, is people will be so focused on their brother Joseph, that they're not realizing that their name is Judah, and they will be the predecessor for the Jesus Christ, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. So the same Judah who Jesus is the descendant of, which I found out obviously with my critical thinking. I even looked up into where all the different tribes used to live when they got to the promised land. It's so interesting, by the way. Like so much of it is so interesting. You just have to research it. Like I properly found the old like diagrams of the temples. Like it's so interesting because everything God does has like 100,000 meanings to it. And that's why I just think, listen, God, I ain't even trying to compete with you at this because you just the best. I ain't even trying to compete with you. I just want to participate. Just send me where I need to be. I'll teach my little lessons humbly because I cannot possibly compare to what the Lord is doing, right? So yeah, critical thinking. So again, a lot of people, even with the Bible, the same reason they struggle with education. That's the funny thing. The same reason people struggle with algebra is the same reason people struggle with God. Because there's a lack of logical thinking. There's a lack of critical thinking. We've been literally created to be these robots, these puppets that just go out and just say and do what we've been programmed to do. This is why they love AI. AI is about to be taken over as well, y'all. This is the point. If we were actually a logical, critical thinking force, right? AI wouldn't be able to take over us. The fact that we just show up and we just allow people to just be telling us, and I'm not talking about a good, normal, hard day's work, guys. I'm being very specific here, okay? Because I am very much in favor of a normal day's work. You go as the bees do, right? The bees, they go out, they do their work, they work around. And that's where we get the phrase worker bees from, right? They find their pollen, they do what they got to do, right? Their nectar, whatever. So same thing with us. We each are given gifts that we can put to work in order to provide for ourselves and our families and whatnot, and what have you. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking that is good. That is all good. That is good, and that is God. God even talks about it in Proverbs. He says, why are you complaining about being broke when you ain't doing nothing? That's not how he puts it. But watch my Proverbs series. You guys will be able to see what it is. You'll be able to see what it is in there. Because I go through all the scriptures of Proverbs in the Proverbs series. Anyway, so it's a playlist. So I'm realizing that the issue is we're not critical thinkers. We're just people that have to color only inside the lines. Like somebody was saying this about the programming of that, of like, you write with your right hand. Isn't it interesting? I find it really interesting that there is a statistic. This is why I have to have my own research lab one day. But anyway, there is a statistic that states that left-handed people are generally more intelligent than right-handed people. Here's my hypothesis. I have many, so many, which is why I hope the Lord will let me have my own research lab one day, right? Here's my hypothesis that the people who were writing we were all told to write with our right hand, right? When you try to write with your left hand, you're put off, and you basically have to really, really push it off for you to be able to write with your left hand, right? I can only speak for the UK system on this one. What if those people were just the ones strong enough in their critical thinking and logic to say, Well, it's more comfortable for me to write with my left hand than with my right hand. So I'm going to write with my left hand. Maybe it's the fact that they had such a high capacity and almost like a disposition to logical thinking from the beginning is why they're so intelligent. And the fact that some of us are so susceptible to just being pushed into a box is why have a disposition to thinking illogically and therefore being less intelligent. Because even the definition of intelligence, let me get the definition of intelligence up. I don't know if people know the definitions of these words that people be using, because intelligence isn't what people think it is. Because some of you will realize when I read the definition of intelligence, what it actually means. But my point is here, this whole writing with your right hand, this whole coloring inside the lines. Now, as a teacher and a woman, I appreciate and love the practices of helping children to, and adults to write neatly, be able to write properly, to be able to have control over their pen. It's good for, your dexterity and building up your hand muscles and everything like that, because it's so cute watching kids trying to write with their little hands. It's so sweet. They're so cute with their little hands. So all of that is important, right? I'm not against that. I just want to be very clear. But what I'm against is the ideology of coloring inside the lines. I'm against the ideology that everybody should write with their right hand and that it's normal to write with your right hand, because who deciphers what's normal? This is why even with, I'm not going to lie, all of this, like everybody's being diagnosed with this, that, and the other. Like, I'm glad that people are getting the support and the help that they need, like in terms of mental health. But I also think, what is actually normal anyway? Because a lot of people, I'll give you guys a perfect example. Half of all of NASA, yes. So consider some of the most intelligent scientists, mathematicians, engineers in the world. More than half of them are dyslexic, ladies and gentlemen. So did it matter that they didn't understand that I before E except after C in English class? Not really. If they can build a freaking spaceship that goes to outer space, you can do I before E except after C, but can you build a spaceship? No, you can't. And this is my point. And I really think that it's the way of God. It's the way of the devil creating a counterfeit system to what God intended. I believe, because I was thinking about this as well. I didn't know I was going here with this video. Sorry, I'm just searching the definition. It's my belief. Actually, maybe I should do the definition first, and then I'll go on to my belief about this type of thing. So, according to Oxford Languages, the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. Acquire and apply knowledge and skills. So it's not about how much you actually have, because there's a lot of people who are very knowledgeable but are not very intelligent. Let me say it again. There's a lot of people who are very knowledgeable but not very intelligent, because your intelligence comes from your ability to apply the knowledge and skills. Guess what the application of knowledge is? Wisdom. And guess who wisdom is? Jesus. Why? Because he followed everything the Lord told him to do, because true wisdom is to follow God. Hello? Do you know what I'm saying? This is what I'm saying. It all intertwines for me. I don't know how people separate even algebra from God. I'm like, it only all makes sense. All of it all clicks together for me. I just don't get how people don't get it. I honestly don't know. I don't know. And I'm like the least likely person on earth to be making these connections. Random 26-year-old black girl. Love it. Born in Florida, It had to take one of us crackheads to be crackhead enough to actually believe in God. But anyway, so what I was going to say is, so my understanding of intelligence and just capability in life, I believe that God placed inside all of us certain gifts and talents, right? And when we say gifts and talents, again, these are, let's see if there's a good definitions for that. When I say gifts and talents, what I don't mean like what people tend to think, which for some reason people always go straight to like the like creative types. Look, this is even the definition. This is perfect. A natural aptitude or skill. Perfect. So I believe everybody has a natural aptitude or skill at certain individual things. And that those are the things that God placed inside of you for you to build your kingdom on earth that is a part of his kingdom. The overall kingdom of Jesus is built by us all building our individual kingdoms, right? So I believe that it's a job, even like as a parent, this is why I'm in favor of homeschooling. You just help your children to discover what is it that God has placed inside of you and how do I help nurturing whatever that is that's inside of you and getting you onto the right path of where you need to go. So from that standpoint, what I'm saying is I believe that this whole system just doesn't make any actual sense because I don't believe it was ever, yes, there are certain basic skills we all need to learn, right? Like we all need to know how to read and write. We all need to know how to do basic mathematics. Honestly, we would be doing so much better if people were learning about things like how to do their taxes and stuff like that instead of, I don't know, what the heck are some of these circle theorems, like what they're doing in GCSE, like why are they doing the circle theorems? Like it's so stupid. Like sometimes I find it really hard when I'm teaching to like keep inside how stupid I think the topics they have to do are. Because I'm thinking this is so dumb. Like, this is absolutely the stupid. Like, there's so much more beneficial mathematics. Like for example, like I was saying, with this young man that I was working with, and my new job, I was saying to him, this is another job, because I always like to tell the young people about the different types of jobs that are available. So the video that we were watching where the guy was like drawing the lines on a football pitch, I was like, this is like a job that somebody can do. And then these are the opportunities to then delve into. So what do you need to get into a job like this? Because again, in school, I don't know what it is like in the rest of the world, but I can say, I didn't know half the jobs that I've done outside, like most of the jobs that I've done, I didn't know existed when I was in school. I was a freaking teenager. Like, how am I supposed to know all of these jobs exist? You know what I'm saying? So she says the day she's no longer going to the careers fair she was invited to, which is tomorrow. But nevertheless, there's more important things on the agenda at the moment. But, you know, they don't even know what these jobs are. This is what I'm saying. Kids are lost. So when people are like, oh, the young people of today, I'm like, yeah, because they don't even know that we need to help. Like, it's our job to help them to discover. This is why I try to always personalize the lessons I do as much for the kids. So if I know there's different kids with different things, I try to personalize it into their interests to try and just throw things out there like, oh, so now you know. So now, for example, this gentleman, he already knows what he wants to do. He's going to go and study do the trades, which now apparently they do this multiple trade course thing where you can do like all the trades. Very cool course, by the way. I think it's amazing that they're offering this. So I would like highly recommend that course. Anyway, so I would like a lot of our lessons now are all geared to preparing him for like what he has to do. But yeah, like I believe everybody has a natural aptitude or natural skill at certain things, because that's how God created it for it to be, because he created it for us to be a community. And then when we all do what we all are good at and we all come together as a group and we all share in what we're good at, then everything is covered. You see what I'm saying? And that's what community is supposed to be about. That's what community is supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be like having a, let me choose my words really wisely here. It's like having a dinner party, right? Everybody brings a dish, right? Everybody brings a dish and we all enjoy everybody's dishes, right? And whatever dish we make, eventually there's probably going to come a time where we all realize that this person makes the best this, that person makes the best that person makes the best this. We all know who's making that. We all would never dare to try to make what the other people are making. We're just going to stick with what we know we're good at, but we all get to enjoy the greatness of us all. And for me, that is true winning. You know, so when it comes to things like this, I think we need to really move away from this thinking of like, oh, education is you need to get this grade in this many subjects. It's like, no, there are the very much basics of reading and writing, you know, numbers, maths, etc. Everything else needs to be a lot more specialized. Because again, if we think of history, I learned history in school. It was actually one of my favorite subjects. The history I've learned out of school, I find far more interesting and has been so much more vast. And I've actually realized, it's helped me to realize a lot with the things that they do choose to teach about in schools in the UK and the things that they don't. So, for example, one thing they definitely didn't teach about is how America got their independence from the Brits, which I find hilarious that they don't teach about that, because, of course, why would they have that as part of the curriculum? Not their finest hour over here. It's just funny. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of these subjects, again, you're learning them, but is your child, be honest with yourself, think logically, is your child going to cover all of the history in the X amount of years that they spend in school? Or geography? Or even science? Or even math? Or even, do you see what I'm saying? Even English? No. So there's a basic level that we all need, right? And then past that point, everything I think should be specialized. And when I say specialized, I mean as per person, as per is relevant, because different things are relevant to different people. And like I said, the reason why we're not doing that, the reason why so many people are like, oh, I always wanted to, like I was thinking about this earlier, right? I was listening to a podcast. I listen to so many podcasts at the moment. I was listening to a podcast, and in the podcast, they were discussing like, a girl was saying, I honestly didn't really, I wasn't catching her vibes. I'm not gonna lie, she was not my vibe. So I'm not gonna say who it was, because I would never put somebody down for nothing. She's just not my type of person. Nevertheless, so what she was saying anyway, she was saying that her dad was in favor of her not going to school. He was like, you can learn so many skills without going to school. Her mum was more like, you need to have a degree. And so she basically did a bit of both. And she realized that she'd rather do the creative stuff. That people say that the creative stuff, like, you don't know if it's a job. And you know what? I'm going to say something unpopular. I believe that if it is for you, if you are truly gifted at something or have that talent, and that doesn't just go for creative gifts. The Bible says your gift makes room for you. Let's see if we can get that scripture. I'm getting carried away now with getting these things up. Your gift. Yeah. So, life hack. If you ever don't know, oh my gosh, it's in Proverbs. Of course, it's in Proverbs. I should have known. And in case you guys didn't know this, just to give you guys a bit of a one-up in the one-up. Yeah. If ever you're needing to find a scripture and you don't know where it is, just Google the words that you know, and then it'll come up. This is what's one thing that I have to say is good about the modern age. So let's read this from the Bible. We're gonna go to the Passion Translation, my friend. Let's go to the Passion Translation. Oh my gosh. Your gift makes room for you. This is what the Bible says. Let's make sure we're talking about this in context. Wisdom gives life. Ooh, that's how it starts. I should watch through my own flipping Proverbs videos. Okay, so it should be verse 16. I actually love the Bible, so we're just going to read from here. Okay, no, we won't. Anyways, I won't get distracted. So yeah, Proverbs 18, what's it called? 18, 16, yeah, your gift makes room for you. So I believe that, it talks about taking a generous gift. I believe that when you have a real gift to give in this world, right? It's talking about, here it says, would you like to meet a very important, take a generous gift? It will do wonders to gain entrance into his presence. This is Proverbs 18:16. I love the second part of it. Verse 17 says, there are two sides to every story. The first one to speak sounds true until you hear the other side and they set the record straight. I love the Bible. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say here is that, you know, I believe that when you tap into whatever God has placed inside of you, and that could be anything. Like, I love that Jesus was a carpenter. That is so cool. Like, is there furniture in this world that was built by Jesus? And where do I buy it? Like, this is the type of stuff I would waste money on. You know, people will waste money on like Gucci, Louis V, and whatever LV, GG, CC, whatever. They're spending money on. I would love to buy something built by the hands of Jesus. Oh my gosh. Imagine how much of, by the way, I just thought about how horrible it must have been for him to have spent his whole life working on wood to then be stuck to a tree. Is just nuts. The haters be actually hating, like for real. Like, Jesus is so humble. Praise Jesus. Anyway, I digress. Every time I start thinking about Jesus, it just sends my brain. It's actually like being in love. Anyways, so what I was saying was that, I believe everybody has a gift that needs to be harnessed. And I believe that everybody is different. Every child is different. Everybody deserves something different. But I just feel that, like, where we've had societies become so illogical, we've like forgotten those truths. We've forgotten that, like, you know, as a parent, any of you guys who have children out there, and I haven't even had children yet, but I've worked with hundreds of kids at this point, maybe even thousands, right? That every child is different. Their needs are slightly different. Their ability or speed in taking up information or the strategies that you use is different. So why do we logically think that somebody's standing in a room with 25 of these kids, 30 or more, saying one thing is immediately supposed to naturally register perfectly in all of their minds, and if it doesn't, it's because they're the problem? Can we make sense? Do you see what I'm saying about how illogical that actually is when you actually think about it that way? And the reason why it might only sound like this for the first time is because we've been so well trained in illogical thinking that this logical thinking is what now seems more uncomfortable to think about, even though it should be the most comfortable because it's the most logical. Am I blowing your brain? Logical thinking has become so uncomfortable that logical thinking seems illogical. This happens to me with the kids all the time. This is why I love teaching so much, because I'm like, I feel like I'm really helping these kids, because they'll be saying something to me like in their question. I'll be like, oh, I wrote this. I'm like, why? Because my answer seemed too big. Your answer seemed too big. Okay, but what was the method you did before? I did this. Okay. Does that make sense to you? Why you did that? Yes. Okay. And so how did you get this number? I don't know. I just did ... because ... I'm like, so is there a reason? They were like, not really, but this number seems like it makes more sense. Okay. Then I'll say, if you had to, let's ignore the answer for a second. This is literally what I do with the kids, by the way. I always say to them, like, listen, let me cook. I don't say let me cook to them, but, you know, I'll tell them, don't worry, I'm going somewhere with this, you know. So then I'll say, ignore the answer for a second. Of those two methods that you used, which one is more logical? And do you know what's funny about logical thinking? Is you can tell somebody to think logically and you don't have to explain what logic means, because your brain is a logical thing. Like, this is where I have to agree with L. Ron Hubbard. I will be finishing the Scientology book. He's right about the brain. Like, I've been thinking so much about his thing, and that's why he's able to manipulate it, because he's got enough truth to reel you in into the lies and the deep pit of demonic stuff that he's doing. So then I'll say, which method is the most logical? I've never at one point ever explained to any student, anyone I've ever taught, what my definition of logic is. I just use the word. Let's look at the definition for logic. And they'll pick the first method. So again, I'll ask, okay, so then why did you pick the second method? Well, because the answer just seemed too big. And I'm like, yeah, that was the right answer. The first one. And then that's where I'm just like, stick with your logic. And I can see the same tension I see going through the children when I'm saying this is the same tension I see from adults today when they are also going through stuff, where there's like a battle between the feeling, the head, and the heart. I feel like, and I was thinking about this today because one of the things that one of my kids said, I feel like that this is whatever. It's like, that's how you feel, but what do you think? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's decipher between the two. And so it's also interesting. It's all very interesting. Okay, so the definition of logic, we'll finish with this. Reasoning conducted or assessed according to strict principles of validity. So exactly what I'm saying to the kids. What you did prior, you had reasons why you did this, and then this, and then that, and then that. So why have you chosen something where there was no strict principles of validity because you didn't think the answer made sense? that is society for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just here to deliver whatever my thoughts are for the day. But after my first session of lessons today, I was like, nah. Like, now I get it. Like, there's not been one time I worked with any child who's incapable. They're all so much more capable than anyone ever told me. One of my kids, the teacher told him, oh, they'll never be able to be good at balanced equations. Is better at balanced equations than the kids older than them now. Like, the kids I teach, I'm teaching a 10-year-old, age 16 level algebra right now. Because the parents requested, they're like, we want our son to do this. We've heard about what you might be able to do this. Can you do this? I'm like, sure. And he's finding it easy. He's finding it's hard a little bit at the beginning because we've got to warm up the brakes and put in some strong habits. But anyways, guys, you get the gist. Let me know your thoughts on the education system and your experience in the comment section down below. I want to hear you guys' experiences. Anyways, God bless you all. If life's a game, let's play to win. I'm done.